All right, I guess we're on live, whatever. We're live now.
I'll do it live.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. All right. I know before I put this in a new window, I'm trying to figure out how I did it. I might have been doing that on StreamYard though. All right, go into your phone and I'm gonna start talking. Just go into your phone and put this in the Discord. All right, guys. Sorry for the little mishaps in the front. We are usually doing this on StreamYard, so I am just trying to get this all set up before we start talking. Thank you for joining us in the room. If you are in the room, make sure that you are, if you're one of the first people, to give a thumbs up and also try to let me know if the audio sounds okay. And we'll get started. We are going to be talking about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero today. I'm joined with me is Ragiroth, and we are going to be talking about our questions and concerns that we have with this. So, I don't know, I guess getting started before we get into the major meat and potatoes of this, as everyone knows, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, aka Tenkaichi 4, is going to be releasing sometime soon. I've seen leaks referring to it being in October of 2024, but we have no idea if that's true or not, even though that actually does line up potentially with old releases. So that does have somewhat of a good connotation to it, but I'm not exactly sure how reliable that is. Let's go a little bit so you can get closer to the mic.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, joining me is Ragiroth, and he is going to be talking about this with us. So when we start getting chat in here, then we will ask us any questions that you want. I'm going to have Rich take over for a second while I get up the chat, so you can just introduce yourself and then talk about what we're going to be talking about today.
How's it going, everybody? Ragiroth here. Yeah, I'm really glad to be on the stream and do another thing with Mark again. I know it's been a bit. But yeah, so it is looking like that Sparking Zero will come out in October. I mean, I figured, it was either going to be October or at the very latest, very early 2025. But I figured they would definitely not want this game missing the holiday season and kind of that fall time frame, like October, late September, maybe early November is usually the typical, from the past. That's usually when those games released. I know Xenoverse has maybe changed things a little bit, but back in the Tenkaichi days, I definitely remember always getting my hands on the game. Usually around October.
Yeah,
around if it was a big fall game back then. So kind of lines. Even when I think when they did Raging Blast, I'm pretty sure those games were October as well. And October 1st is on a Tuesday, which I know Tuesday was always the big day for game releases, and I know it's a little different these days, but I think Bandai Namco, they still do Tuesday from what I can recall.
So, yeah, Bandai Namco is usually Tuesday.
There was also apparently an icon leak, I think for Steam or something like that, shows Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku. So there was another, I guess, little leak mishap that isn't really anything super shocking as well. That seemed pretty legit too.
Yeah, so basically we're going to be talking about some concerns that we have with the game. Just because as longtime Dragon Ball fans and people who pretty much own all of the Dragon Ball games, if not vast majority of them, and have played all of them almost, I do certainly have a few concerns, and I'm sure Rich has some too. The biggest thing I want to talk about is going to be roster, so I think we can actually start talking about that now. So I'll have Rich talk a little bit about that, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, so basically, I think ever since a certain blue-skinned feline character from the Turn of Power was announced for the game, I think the attitude towards certain parts of Dragon Ball being represented, the game kind of became more, I guess, negative or bleak for a lot of people, mainly because I think people seem to think that the game will be kind of picking even the most obscure characters from Super, like the Tenkaichi games of old did, like Z and the movies and all that. But this time they'll be going more ham on like Super. And I think the fact that we haven't really seen any characters from these parts of Dragon Ball, like OG Dragon Ball, the non-canon movies like Cooler's Revenge, Fusion Reborn, and all them, GT of course, and then the newest film Dragon Ball Superhero has people concerned. I am kind of mixed on the matter. I think there's evidence to kind of worry, and there's evidence to not worry. I know it's the easiest one to probably, I guess, attack is Superhero. I've seen a lot of people say because the game has been in development for, I believe, 5 years, and Superhero came out in theaters about 2 years ago, that the roster was decided long before any of those characters were known to the public, so that they couldn't be in the game, at least the base roster, and that they just sell too well as DLC, which I guess I can't argue that too much. But in terms of kind of not or being too new, I think we got to look at some other games and kind of what they did. One of the biggest kind of glaring examples, I think, would be Dragon Ball Fighters. I know it's a totally different kind of game, but it is a Dragon Ball game that came out in recent years. If you recall, Hit and Goku Rose Black were in that base roster, and I actually looked, and the episodes that kind of showed a lot of their, move sets that were used for that game, like I think they weren't even like 2 years after Dragon Ball Fighters came out. They were like mid 2016, mid late 2016, and Fighters came out, I believe, early 2018. And I don't know how long Fighters was in development for, but Arc Systems work does not play around. I'm sure that game was in development for at least 3 to 4 years.
I mean, even piggybacking off what you were saying about Beast Mode Gohan and the stuff in the movies, that's even more gleaming true, because when we just got the new PS5 version of Xenoverse 2, they had lauded that that's actually going to be coming with all of the DLC that has happened thus far, even, except for the Future Saga, which is beginning the same day that game released. And lo and behold, the only characters that were not included in that free upgrade for the PS5 were Beast Gohan and the Gammas, which were basically the movie packs. So that piggybacks off of what Rich was saying about how they know that stuff sells, so they usually use that for DLC as opposed to including it in any version of the game. Also, I do see you guys in chat. Hey, what's up? When we get to the questions, I will definitely address you guys. And Drager, my birthday is upcoming in July. It's not yet, so you didn't miss it. But yeah, just going off of that, it's like there's a lot of signs that we're seeing with these trailers and the V-jump leaps for Sparking Zero that at least have me a little bit concerned. And like what Rich was saying, movies and GT and stuff like that seems to be not the focus. It seems to be a Dragon Ball Super focus, which I can understand because it's what's airing or what was most recently aired. So what people are watching. I just wish that people were actually doing more than focusing on that. Like maybe if we got into the manga aspect of it and we're going into Moro and stuff like that and Granola, I'd be a little bit more excited, but they usually don't do that kind of stuff. But they do go into what ifs. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. Because we have had from them in the past, what if forms and whatnot, and what if scenarios, obviously, in the other Tenkaichi games. I'm just hoping that they actually do know what they're doing with this. But it's it's not really up to developers a lot of times either. It is up to the producers and the investors and Bandai Namco, the publisher, which are telling them what to focus on and what can actually be in and what needs to be omitted and stuff like that. The developers have no say or control over that kind of stuff. It's basically dictated to them what to focus on and what to work on. And the easiest way to cross promote that and market that is to do stuff that's recent and relevant while making big money on things that are also in the zeitgeist, meaning the recent movie and stuff like that. So I don't think there's also going to be too big of a focus on Daima. I think if we do get any Daima characters, that will be DLC as well.
I was going to say that because a lot of people think that Superhero is kind of a hot new item. And it's not, it's still fresh in our minds. But when this game comes out, Daima is going to be the hot new focus. And I think that would make more sense to have that be the DLC thing as opposed to superhero. I mean, I know a lot of us might not find some of the characters in Daima as appealing as superhero, but it's obviously subjective from who you speak to.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly the case. I mean I just think that like the problem that I have is they claim that this is like a direct sequel to Tenkaichi 3. Like they keep on going over that in the promotional materials and saying that like this is the sequel, this is a sequel, this is a sequel. And the funny part about it is I don't know how it could be a sequel when they're not focusing on the same aspects they were focusing before. So like for example, we were talking about this earlier, like GT and movies have been in since Tenkaichi 1. Like they were in since Tenkaichi 1. GT, yes, was removed from Raging Blast 1 and Raging Blast 2, but they still had the movies, and they even had specials like Hachiyak and stuff like that weren't in
even Tenkaichi 3,
yeah, in traditional like movies like that, and even pulled from other sources like Dr. Slump with like Arale and stuff, even though she has had crossovers with Dragon Ball and the anime and such. But yeah, just like for me personally, like my favorite like form is Super Saiyan 4, so to not have GT in the base game is going to hurt a lot. And the one thing I will say is that people keep on saying, well, don't worry, because like there's still a ton of character slots. There's still this, there's still that. Problem with that is like they count every single form individually as a new character. And with 164 slots, that doesn't give us much. And stuff is getting taken out in lieu for Tournament of Power characters as well because of who we just saw released in Tournament of Power. I forget her name. What's her name? The magical girl.
Oh, well, Kakunsa was shown, but are you thinking of Ribrianne?
No, not Ribrianne, Kakunsa.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna have characters like that being in there, then that like the focus is going to be on the Tournament of Power because they wouldn't have obscure characters like that if they're not planning on like filling out the roster with Dragon Ball Super characters, especially Tournament of Power, because we still haven't seen anybody from the future Goku Black arc either. We haven't seen
from Trunks.
Right. Well, Trunks is like a given because he's Trunks, but that just kind of like makes me a little bit worried. And people say like, oh, 164 characters is so much. You got to understand Tenkaichi 3 had over 150 characters. So if you're giving new slots to that, that's only 14 characters over what they had in the last game. Yeah, so they're going to be taking, we already seen new characters. So we're going to be missing characters from the last game. And true, it may be fun characters that like nobody's thinking about, like missing like Devilman or like even Arale and stuff like that. Like we can live with that, but they're also going to be adding the fodder characters that they need for story mode to tell the story. So we're going to be having slots for like Apool and Frieza Soldier and Cyberman and Cell Jr. and like all that stuff is going to be in there. Like you've seen it in Xenoverse too. Like they have them, not as many as Tenkaichi, but they do have them in there. I know that's Dimps and it's not it's not Spike Chunsoft, but
I'm kind of hoping with the Z characters, maybe it's just they're just doing what if stories and then kind of just push those characters to the side, but it's kind of hard to speculate with that because they didn't really talk too much of the story mode yet.
Professor Sage of Six Path says Bandai Namco isn't allowed to put manga only stuff in Dragon Ball games. No company that makes Dragon Ball games can. The only thing
in Jump Force though.
No, I think you're talking about Dragon Ball specifically.
Oh, Dragon Ball. Okay,
yeah, the only reason why I would kind of agree with him is because of the licensing rights, because Bird Studios and Toei Animation own the licensing rights to Dragon Ball the anime. So like the manga is a totally different thing. That's Shueisha. So they would like need like specific permission from Shueisha and licensing fees in order to include that kind of stuff. And they usually would do that as a promotional way to promote the upcoming anime. That's how they usually use it because unfortunately they don't really promote the manga that much. Like it's usually just like the anime is the focus or whatever movie is coming out is how they will actually like go with that. So I do agree with him for that. As much as I would love to see Granola and Moro and all those space pirates.
It would just be cool if they could be transparent about that, though, and just say that. I think that would kind of, clear up a lot of things.
I think the problem with transparency when it comes with corporates and corporate structures is because they want to keep us on our edge of our seat of what's a possibility.
Yeah.
So the more that we let our brains run rampant and wild, the more expectations we have, and like the more we'll say, okay, well they're not in this game, so maybe a sequel, and they'll want us to keep promoting and pushing and buying. It's just how the corporate structures work. I always liken it to like K-pop when it's like the girls when they're younger they sign contracts that they're actually not allowed to have boyfriends until like a certain type because they want the guys that listen to them to, you know, have imaginary chance of like getting with these like cute single girls. It's like the same thing with video games here. Like that's just pretty much how they market it. It's for more potential money. That's why they all still sign NDAs and stuff like that, and they'll get in trouble if like they leak anything, which is also a big issue. But I don't know necessarily like. I think I've just put myself in the right frame of mind to expect that stuff's not going to be in base and possibly not even DLC like GT and certain movie characters and stuff like that.
The thing is,
But,
even fighters have GT characters DLC though.
right.
Not much, but
Right. Yeah. I mean, but Fighters is like, that's a different thing too. It's Arch is a different developer, and like, you know, that game was a different kind of game. Like this game is like known for characters and stuff like that. So whatever, whoever Fighters puts in there is probably irrelevant to like what Spike Chunsoft's plans are or what Bandai wants them to promote. If anything, it'll be focused on like DLC. Like they're going to give us a taste of what we want in the base game, because we're already running out of character slots and we haven't even gotten to the future saga. We haven't even introduced movies yet. Just because Broly's name is listed as Broly Super doesn't necessarily mean that like Broly from Z is actually going to be a character in the game. He could be a planned character that comes out in a later pack. And Broly Super is just to distinctify himself from Broly Super, because like that's what he's kind of known as. You know what I mean? Like especially in Tenkaichi games, the way that they name characters. Like, because I've seen people all over the internet say, like, well, his name is Broly Super, which means Broly Z is guaranteed in. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that. It just means that, like, this is the Broly from Super. They have weird naming conventions when it comes to Tenkaichi.
Apparently, I think on the Japanese site, he's actually not even called Broly Super. I think he's just called Broly. But I guess even though it's then the Japanese site could just be separating, but we would just call the other Broly Z, as opposed to just Broly.
Okay, so I'll get to you in a second, Ansh. The Genodeus Gino said the owner of Dragon Ball died. Yeah, I understand that, but Akira Toriyama is also not the owner, and he hasn't really been that involved in Dragon Ball in a long time, except for maybe like doing like character designs and some story overhead. Akira Toriyama hasn't really been doing Dragon Ball since 1997, so I don't know exactly. Like that's not really going to have too much of a input on the game, because the game has always been owned by, and operated and licensed by Shueisha, Bird Studios, Toei Animation. You know what I mean? So like it's like Akira Toriyama was just like the original creator, and he's not like, they don't have like a corporate structure in manga where it's like, oh, you drew the comics, so you like get say over everything. It's actually, they still have editors and they still have people above them that like dictate what they can and can do. And to get to your question about what I think about the release date of Sparking Zero, we actually addressed that in the beginning of the chat. We think it's plausible because of the fact that it matches up with a lot of other release dates. And if you don't know what they are talking about, it's Bandai Namco's site was actually data mined. And there were several release dates found in there, including for New Gunner Breaker 4. There was a bunch of other release dates that were shown in there, and among them was Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and it said October 1st, 2024, which would be this upcoming year. And like Rich was saying, like before this was teased almost like what, a year ago at this point, maybe longer.
This game was, I think, initially teased. It was like spring of 2023, I believe, like April, I want to say.
Yeah. So like it's not even just been worked on since then. It's been in development probably for quite some time. I don't know. There's a lot of little things that I see people having hope for. And I talked about this in a video that I did recently as well, too. There's like biases on both sides for people who are pessimistic about it and people that are optimistic about it. And we're just going to pick and choose our battles and go that way with it. Like I am optimistic, but I also know how these companies operate and work and how they want to get money. If they put every character in the game that we want to see, they know that they have very little to offer in terms of aftermarket paid content, like via DLC and whatnot. You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Oh, well, there was a couple other things I wanted to say.
Go ahead.
So regarding superhero, if it is base roster, I do think any characters from that will be shown at the very end of this, like right before the game comes out. Like kind of how like, Goku, Black Beerus, and Hit were saved for the last with fighters. And I do think that if, GT movies, superhero, any of them do make the base roster, it's definitely not going to be much. Like maybe no more than like 5 or 6 at most. Like I would say if they do make it, expect more like Tenkaichi 1's amount, Budokai 3, maybe Infinite Worlds amount, or maybe Xenoverse 1, not like, Tenkaichi 3's movie and GT amount. And I did also want to say too, that this maybe helps the movie characters, not as much the GT characters, but like Future Gohan is in the game, and generally speaking, he's actually been treated like worse or as as good as like some movie characters, even in GT characters. Like I remember in the Tenkaichi games, he was actually added. He wasn't added till Tenkaichi 3. Like Garlic Jr. was in the Tenkaichi series before he was, which is crazy because we never see Garlic Jr. anymore.
Well, to be fair, that actually hurts the chances of GT because
GT, I don't think Future Gohan helps.
Yeah, because they're showing a special in one of their specified trailers, which was like the Master and Disciple, whatever trailer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the problem that I have with that is like they would have then shown Super Saiyan 4 in the Rivals trailer with Goku versus Vegeta, but they skipped right past that and went right into Super Saiyan Blue.
True, but they also didn't show Ultra Instinct Goku as well as Super Saiyan Blue Evolved Vegeta.
I could see that, but I think it's probably because they didn't fight each other in those two forms. Because it was mainly like,
Super Saiyan 3 Goku actually never fought Vegeta.
Yeah, he should have.
Yeah, I agree.
Should have whooped his tail all over that battlefield. But and I'm a Vegeta fan saying that. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to be too pessimistic about this. Do you have any like positivity that like you want to? You be the voice of reason because I have a lot of negativity when it comes to this. So you represent the positivity community and all.
Yeah, and I do kind of want to say, like, I understand the jadedness. We've been burnt a lot with these kind of roster things before, especially with like the more, I guess, obscure side of these franchises. I do think if we do start to see more like kind of dark horse picks like Kakunsa for the Tournament of Power and all that, then yeah, it's probably time to pack it in for those characters in the base roster. But like, yeah, a couple of things I wanted to say in terms of maybe helping these characters make it in is that when they first teased this game, they showed footage of, I think from Tenkaichi 3, and they showed stuff from the Saiyan Saga, Namek Saga, Android, Boo, and then they showed Super Saiyan 4 Goku doing 10 times Kamehameha on, I believe, Baby Vegeta. And I feel like it would be a little, I know it's just a little harmless teaser. It does feel a little disingenuous kind of showing that. When like it's not when like those characters aren't going to be in the base game, especially if they're kind of touting this so much as like kind of following Tenkaichi as opposed to Raging Blast.
Yeah, they said it's a direct sequel to Tenkaichi 3, not Raging Blast 1 and 2.
Yeah, and the Raging Blast games had no GT characters. They were very good on movie characters in 2, but they had no movie characters. They had no GT characters. So
even Ultimate Tenkaichi like was very underrepresented. It only had like I believe Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron. That's it. Yeah.
So I feel like if they're really trying to treat this as a return to form, they should recognize that a lot of these characters have been around since the beginning, and they should kind of be treated as such. And then I guess two other things I wanted to say is that like I know there was that kind of interview with I think the producer or something. There's the thing that basically said like there's no local multiplayer. One of the things said that
Jun Futanari, I believe his name is.
It might have been, yeah. It said that these are very non-answers, but I guess that at least helps maybe them as DLC. It probably helps the movie characters a bit more. It said like this will go up to Daima and GT. They may be base or DLC. But then it interestingly said like the game will feature movie characters possibly up to Beast Gohan. So like I mean the GT one is a really non-answer. Like that doesn't really help either way. But the movie one, like if they're talking about movies in general, that does make it sound like movies will be in the base roster, and they just weren't sure if superhero would be. And then I guess the last thing I kind of want to say, this is probably the most kind of up in the air one. I did make a video kind of, predicting the roster. And with that, what I kind of did, the reason I actually did that was for these characters, was I was kind of trying to put my, like, kind of realistically see if these characters could fit in this roster. What I try to do was I try to prioritize as much as Z and super stuff as possible, like even stuff that I really didn't want to thought was necessary. I'm like, what would they pick? And I was still able to fit like some GT and movie characters and superhero characters in that. And so far, the only two things I've gotten wrong, and this was after the Rivals trailer, but before the Power and Speed trailer, the only thing I've gotten wrong so far is Kakunsa and Super Saiyan controlled Kale. I think that's what people usually call it. Everything else I've at least been spot on about. And there were some characters I did in that prediction. I put like King Cold and King Vegeta on there and like Nail and Pycon characters. I'm like, yeah, I don't. Now that I'm thinking about, I don't think they're gonna make it. So yeah, I don't know. Just my 2 cents.
I think this is going to be basically, if you want my opinion about it, it's going to be sequel slash reboot. So it's going to be like, yes, this is a sequel directly to Tenkaichi 3. However, don't expect everything that was in Tenkaichi 3 to return, because this is going to, the focus of this is going to be Dragon Ball Super. That was Dragon Ball Z, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and this is, did they even say Dragon Ball Z? No, it's a Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah, it's just Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Great. I think a lot of things have kind of gotten away from calling it Z. I've noticed.
Well, that's the marketer, because most people that are laymen to the series, like, they're not going to know distinctively what each individual like franchise is. They're just going to say DBZ or Dragon Ball like Z, no matter even if it's Super or if GT or not. That's just what they call it. But I think it's very intentional that they called it Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, even though the rest of them in the franchise were called Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know exactly like how that fits into with what characters are going to be in and stuff like that. I'm not saying that that is going to have any effect on it whatsoever. I'm just saying that like the characters they are releasing and showing in these trailers, it seems very specific, and it's not a mix. It's not a mismatch. It's pretty much Dragon Ball Super with the exception of some characters like Future Gohan and whatnot. Yeah. What do you want to say about that?
Well, I think another thing too is like, you know, like I said, like if we get movie GT and superhero, like I don't think like, you know, a lot of them won't be in the game. Where they probably, if they are in the base roster, they probably don't want to like, you know, like I don't know, this is the dirty thing to say, you know, blow their load too early, or like, you know, they'll show like 3 movie characters in a trailer, and then that they already be like halfway through them. While like the Z and Super, since there's so many of them, they can kind of spread the wealth a bit more. Maybe, you know, that also, I guess it is also possible that movie and GT characters, like they are in, or there are some in, but like maybe they were added later. So that might be, you know, I don't know if they're showing characters in kind of order they were completed too.
The problem is that a lot of these characters are using the base models from their old games. Like they're almost directly one-to-one, like what they were in Tenkaichi. They're just up-resed a lot. Similar to how Raging Blast did with their characters, and the move sets are like a mix between like Raging Blast and Tenkaichi.
Yeah.
So there is a spiritual successor-ness to the Raging Blast series in there as well. But I think that like so the character models are already there, obviously with like less polygons and like less resolution, so they can take any of the old assets that they had and up-res them for Sparking Zero, which is why I also think they're going to be DLC, because it's easy to produce that stuff and make a ton of money off of. So they know that like there's a definite fan base out there for GT. I mean, even specifically this year, the literally owning company came out in a they had like a live stream or something, or a convention. They were showing the timeline of the official Dragon Ball timeline, and Dragon Ball GT was featured on the official timeline. So they're saying it's like another dimension from our dimension, but it is canon. Like they literally specifically said that GT is canon, so everyone that's like, "Oh, it's not canon," can like go suck rocks, because like it is. They're just like, there's a lot of messy timeline stuff in this game, and it's like it's not as crazy as like Dragon Ball Heroes, obviously, but and though I wish they would put Heroes characters in there as well.
And that's another thing I want to say. Like I personally think characters that like are video game exclusives and Daima, I think they would be much more reasonable picks for DLC, because they'd be characters that we've never been to play as Tenkaichi games. And it wouldn't feel as like, I don't want to say scummy, but like, you know, it would be less frustrating seeing like, you know, Android 21 and Mira and like Baby Janemba as DLC rather than seeing like, you know, characters that we get all the time, but like that kind of character, like movie characters like Cooler or Super 17 or Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta as DLC. Like I think that would be, you know, it would still be appealing, and I think draw a lot of people in while also not being such a, you know, a kick in the ass for people that like, you know, like the movies and GT and stuff that have played Tenkaichi since the beginning.
I'll just feel more comfortable if they at least open the door. Like if they show GT Kid Goku, Pan, and Trunks, if they have them just in the roster, like, and maybe like one of the villains, like even if it's like Lud or some crap like that, I don't care. Like that would just at least let me know that they're thinking about GT, which means I can expect it via DLC. But if we don't get anything in the base roster, like whatsoever, that's what has me worried. And it's not like this company hasn't done that in the past. Like we just said, like Raging Blast 1 and 2 completely didn't have GT characters. And other Spike Chunsoft titles that worked with Dragon Ball lore, like things like even Jump Force and J-Star's Victory Versus Plus, that was, both of those are Spike. No, Spike Chunsoft did Jump Force, right?
I think they did. I think
they did both. Yeah. There's no GT featured in that for the Dragon Ball characters whatsoever.
No, I thought that was like only manga stuff though, because it was shown in Jump.
I guess, but yeah, that's possibly true. But I'm just saying that in their games they haven't included it recently.
And it's just weird because, like, you know, I understand, like, during the Raging Blast times, it seemed like GT was being, like, phased out of the games. But, like, I feel like ever since, like, Xenoverse came along,
It's had
and even,
yeah.
like, Fighters a little bit, it seems like G2 is getting treated a bit better. So it's just weird for, like, Spike to kind of just go back on that. Like, you know, I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. It's just like I don't believe that as developers they are either. I think this is like a command from above kind of thing, like a publisher kind of thing, being like, hey, like show off Super first because that's what we're still trying to sell. We're still trying to sell the Super Blu-rays. We're still trying to sell like the hope that Dragon Ball Super is going to come back and complete the recent manga stuff that Toyotaro has.
Sorry.
It's okay. So, because what they're actually selling is like product and hope, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that another reason why you said before, like they're not being transparent is because they're hoping that like we are here for the long haul and jumping in on it. And I'm not saying that like if there's no GT characters in the game, I'm not going to buy the game. Like I still have Tenkaichi 1, 2, and 3, so I can literally play GT characters whenever I want. I just want them in this game because it would be cool to see things like Super Saiyan 4 Goku go up against like Super Saiyan Blue Goku.
I think it would be a nice it'd be a nice gesture because it just seems like we all, you know, with the exception of Xenoverse, we always have to kind of wait a bit longer to see a lot of these characters. And with a roster of 164, it would just be nice for them to like stop just doing like just being kind of the usual suspects and throw, you know, a couple curveball. Well, we've seen a couple curveball with, you know, Kakunsa, but I mean, I think there are ways to push Super. And have that be like a huge chunk of the game, but also still have bits and pieces of like movies and GT and stuff as well.
I think what I need to focus on is I'm going to probably try to. I'm not going to say what I'm going to do on the stream because that's like I'm going to look for, let's say, the trademarks and licenses for the game because if they have like the license rights for GT in there, like they don't like when I first got Tenkaichi, I looked on the back of the box to see if it had the reserve for Dragon Ball GT because it'll be like Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
And if they have the licensing for that like on there, then I know that they're planning on having GT stuff in the game. So I gotta try to find out if I can like we'll just say look for the licensing information on this game, especially because like when they grade stuff in other countries, like they definitely have the license lists of like what's there in like the.
I wonder if like the some like the movies would have separate things like Battle of Gods or DBS Broly.
I don't think so because like in the original like license rights for the Spiel, like Cooler and stuff was in there, but they didn't have like Return of Cooler. I think they just considered that part of like Dragon Ball
maybe
Z.
Since like they were bigger, like the theatrical release.
Well, it's Dragon Ball Z like Return of Cooler, so it's like that would just be the one license of Dragon Ball Z, right? Yeah. But GT is a totally different trademark. So if they show GT like next to Super, then like it's going to be in. That's all I was saying with that.
Is it possible they could hide the full list of trademarks until the game is released?
No, because trademarks are registered trademarks. So like what I'm saying is if you know how to look and you go onto like a website or something like that, you can have the list of the data in the background. So when you go into the HTML code or the C++ code or whatever code they're actually using to write their software, you can see the license rights in there. So if they have the registered trademarks in there for certain titles, then you could know for a fact, which is something I could possibly look into doing, but like I don't want to admit to saying anything. It's just a hypothetical situation I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I've done it in the past. I've thought about these things in the past, so maybe we can apply those same happy feelings to this. But yeah, it's just like it is gonna hurt if like those characters aren't introduced.
I mean, here's what I'll say. Like too is like. Personally, playing as a lot of the Dragon Ball Super characters in this game was more of a priority for me anyway, because it's like, hey, I've never gotten to play as Beerus and Goku Black and, Ultra Instinct Goku properly in a Tenkaichi game. So it'd be cool to see that, over, playing as characters like from GT and movies that I have played as before. However, I didn't really mean like really out there super characters that I don't really care for, like Tamo and Kakunsa looks kind of cool, but she is still a more out there character. Like, I'm like, take it easy. I didn't mean like those guys. I meant like kind of the main parts of Super. But like, yeah, even if these characters don't make it, like, it's not a deal breaker, but it would admittedly be a bummer.
And
and
Razel's
just lay a little
saying,
bit of the hype.
but the DBZ movies are different trademarks too, and we have Future Gohan. First of all, the Future Gohan stuff is not a movie. That's an OVA. That's a different kind of thing altogether. But the trademarks are for the names just themselves. Like you're talking about distribution rights, which is a totally different thing than actually the trademark of the registry. So the trademark of the actual names are just Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, and Dragon Ball Daima. The movies are included in their perspective, like trademark. So if it's Dragon Ball Super Broly, then it's not its own trademark. It's trademarked under Dragon Ball Super because they're using the trademark of Dragon Ball Super for the title. That's all that means. You're talking about distribution rights where the movies are owned entirely by Toei Animation. So like they have to go through separate distribution rights to have those things featured in games. Same thing with Shueisha having the actual rights to the manga itself specifically. So that's just distribution rights. That's not trademark. They're two different things. I just wanted to let you know, like real quick, because it can be confusing with all that stuff.
Yeah, and I was gonna say again with Future Gohan, like he's definitely not like the same as like Cooler or like Bojack.
He's an OVA,
but but I do notice in the games he does kind of seem to get like that same like I guess amount of treatment that they do because like I said, he was not playable in a Budokai game until Shin Budokai Another Road, and they didn't even bring him back for Infinite World, unfortunately. And like Tenkaichi didn't add until 3, and then when he was in Raging Blast, he was added with a bunch of movie characters. But like they might be just. I mean, I unfortunately think they could be looking, at how a lot of fans do, where it's like it's canon. That's the only thing that matters, over what's fun and cool.
I think it's just like OVAs are always secondary to actual licensed movies because like Hachiak has only ever been in one thing, and that's because he's from an OVA. That's admittedly, by the way, that the original plan to eradicate the Super Saiyans OVA.
It's like for a game or something.
It's from like 1992 or something from some like game. Yeah. And then it was like a 3-part like animation that was put together for that game, and then that was what was remade. So that's a remake of a OVA for a game. OVA is original video adaptation, so it's not like an actual movie or it's not like an actual anime. It's like something that's supposed to supplement them. There'll be like a side thing. But Dragon Ball has no real canon. Like everything ties into itself and ties into each other. So there's nothing to even like mention when it comes to that kind of stuff. So you can see anything you want, except for like I think like Dragon Ball Heroes is like a totally different trademark. So, and that's also owned by Toei Animation. So like it's kind of a separate thing that they'd have to go to get those kind of characters in there. But like I said, with 164 characters in the base roster, I don't think we're touching anything that has to do with like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if we're worried about movies in GT, there's no way Heroes is making the base roster.
Yeah,
unless they're really trying to just throw some curveballs.
And like I was saying, we do need the actual characters that are going to be the filler characters in there anyway for the story mode. So that takes away slots.
I was also going to say too with I guess with characters like Kakunsa, like I do notice that Spike has thrown like some curveballs in the past, especially when it comes to like female characters. Like, who was expecting like Fasha to be a character added in Tenkaichi 3? And like they even gave her unique moves and all that. And that could be another thing too. Maybe
even Zangia and
yeah. They might just be sort of fishing, especially for the female characters. I mean, I don't really think they have to as much these days because I think Dragon Ball Super, and even some of the video games have brought us a lot more female characters, like like Android 21 and Mira at Toa.
Yeah.
But hopefully, maybe that's what I'm hoping, that she is just sort of a dark horse pick. And maybe that doesn't mean they're going to go totally crazy with the Turner Power characters.
I mean, if they start giving us characters like Android 21, who's like a game introduced character,
I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, that would definitely be time to worry.
It would be a definite curveball for like anything that's like traditionally Dragon Ball to show up. Because I like, as it stands now, I hardly even see like I watched the video that Globku did, and he did a very good roster prediction based on like all of like the stuff. But even he was thrown off with like Kakunsa and stuff.
I feel like she was just maybe because it's weird they showed her before Ribrianne. That's the other weird thing too.
And these transformations being included as different characters, even though they play pretty much exactly the same, except for having maybe different specials or supers, is also a pain in the neck when it comes to working with Tenkaichi. Because I was telling Rich earlier, it was like, yeah, you would think that Infinite World like has like way less Budokai 4, for those of you who don't know. It has like way less characters than like Tenkaichi, but if you actually include all their transformations and stuff, then it's got around 150 characters also. So it's like that's how you look at it from those things. I just wish they did what they're taking from Raging Blast, where like you can actually select your character, select the costume, and then select what supers they're going to use. Because if you can actually select what supers they're going to use, like they did in Raging Blast 2, then you can eliminate those extra character slots going to a clone character with just a different super.
And see, like, I am a little worried that, like, the reason they're kind of touting this big roster is because, like, they're hiding behind the fact that a lot of those characters are just kind of, you know, very, very similar, like, you know, just era splits with minor costumes and minor changes. I will say, though, in their defense, I do like that it does seem like they're picking more like maybe obscure special moves for some of those split characters. Like, I think, like, you know, I think Vegeta has that kind of move he killed Pui Pui with, where he kind of does that, like, sort of double Gallic
like
gun.
the force push.
And supposedly Super Saiyan 3 Goku, this isn't 100% clear, he might have something he did against Fat Janemba too, which is pretty cool.
You mean like the punch down thing with the electric?
I think with, like, the energy or something like that.
Yeah. We got some comments. Hold on for a second. Raziel says, like, King Vegeta has a unique moveset. It's cool, but it is Tenkaichi 4. I just hope that we get GT, OG, Dragon Ball characters. I hope so too, but, like, it looks... The more we get these trailers, the more they keep showing these characters. And it's not like they're just showing major characters. Like, we have Goten and Trunks, so it's... You saw the trailer, you have Goten and Trunks, right? That's automatically, like, 10 characters. Like, that take up 10 character slots.
Admittedly, I figured Goten and Trunks were going to be in the game.
Right, but what I'm saying is that's 10 character slots.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, Goten and Trunks, you have Super Saiyan Goten, Super Saiyan Trunks, Gotenks, Super Saiyan, Gotenks, Super Saiyan 3. Like, there's there's already a ton of characters there. So it's like, and they're all separate slots. Yeah. So, like, I'm using 10 as a reference, but it's just you know what I mean? It's like they didn't just show Goten and Trunks. They showed, like, I think at the total, if you counted them all up, there was just a few characters they showed on that trailer because it's like one page. The V-Jump leak, but that all of them together, I think, was like over 10. Just based on, even though it's only like 4. So that's also why I'm worried.
I also do have to really wonder, and, like, I've been saying this to a lot of people, like, you know, like, I can understand Goku and Vegeta getting all these separations. They've shown so many, like, moves and stuff over the years on these fights, but, like, what differently is, like, base form Caulifla and, like, Super Saiyan Caulifla and Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla can do that's so different from each other? Or even, like, base form Kale, like, she hardly fought as base.
They will do absolutely nothing different, and Spike Chunsoft will do, like, super explosive wave and, like, you know, that scatter shot move and, like, whatever else generic move they have, like barrier blast or whatever.
Power energy wave.
Exactly, the meme one. Like, that's what they'll do for, like, those separate characters. And
Power energy Wally.
All I'm saying is, like, unlike Xenoverse 2, which is Dimps, like, they're the Budokai maker, so it's not Spike Chunsoft. But, like, every character needs a charge. If we're getting, like, this, even the androids, I don't give a crap if you think it's not canon that, like, the androids, like, don't need the charge. Like, just happen to be able to actually not be defensive and literally gain meter by attacking or being attacked is BS.
Well, I kind of don't mind that with Tenkaichi with the androids. I kind of thought that was cool that it kind of make them different. And, like, while the other characters trying to charge, you can, like, kind of just run up and beat them. But yeah, they definitely need a universal charge mechanic this time, and I'm pretty sure they've confirmed that's already a thing.
Yeah, even if it's something like Dabur, like meditation or something, like some way.
Dabur can always charge.
But I mean something like meditation, like if the androids like use like let's say they do a skill that's called focus, and they just sit there and there's no ki charging, but their ki gauge is going up because they're focusing. They can't attack because they're still charging, kind of thing, but they can do it in a way where it looks good. And like still holds true to the canon of the series.
Yeah, they could make it one of their what do you call those, like the explosive wave, like mystic breath, those kind of moves. It could be like one of those for the androids or something.
Yeah. Like one of like the secondary moves. They're like defensive maneuvers.
Yes.
Yeah. We got some more comments. We got that's Vegeta's technique from Hyper. Raziel come back with like, yes, but if you cut Devilman, Freezer soldiers, and some useless characters, they can fit. Here's the thing I'm trying to tell you is like they are going to cut Devilman.
Devilman, yeah.
Devilman's getting cut, who I actually like. But Apple and Frieza Soldier and like all of those characters, Cybermen, they're story mode characters. You're going to be fighting them in the story mode, which means they are going to be separate characters, which means they're going to be separate slots. So they're not going to get cut because they need them for the story mode to function. That's it. They're not going to have them in the story then not be playable. They just wouldn't do that because they've already built movesets for them, and it's an easy character to put in the roster to fill it out. Because Tenkaichi, Spike only cares about the number of characters they have in their games, not their uniqueness, not their differentiating abilities, not like how fun they are, how balanced they are. It's literally just like how many characters they can stuff.
That's something I really have to give to Xenoverse. Xenoverse actually kind of prioritized like movie characters and GT characters over like some forms that like while they would have been nice to see,
Yeah.
like, I'd rather Cooler get his 3 forms than, like, if it's at the expense of like Frieza and Cell maybe missing a couple of their middle forms, for instance.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that goes. It depends on how deep they want to go with the story. Like, are they going to go against like second form Frieza and go into that? But I was talking about this with Shad the other day. I was like, I don't think the story mode is going to be in depth when it comes to Dragon Ball. It's going to be focused mainly on the Tournament of Power. And I don't know how long it's going to be. So, like, we might have something where we got in Naruto Storm Connections where we have like a history mode that's separate from the main story mode, where it goes through like a really quick, different version of Dragon Ball Z. And then the main story is going to be a continuation from Tenkaichi 3, which is focused on Super. I can easily see them doing that and having it 2 separate story modes, or having a character-specific story mode like they do kind of like Soul Chronicles and Soul Calibur 6, if you played that, or like in Budokai, how they have like different character episodes by choosing that character. So we have our main story and then maybe character episodes. So if you choose Goku, you go through Goku's fights. If you choose like Vegeta, you go through Vegeta's fights up to Super. So mainly being Dragon Ball Z. Because I don't know if the movies are going to be included in that either. I hope what ifs and movies are like included in the story, but
this might be a hot take. But what I kind of hope they do is just with the Z stuff, they just do what ifs, and then Super gets its own story. Because personally, I've played through the Z story so many times. I've
heard that, but they're going to say that a lot of new kids that have grown up with Dragon Ball Super don't know the story of Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Z is their cash cow because it is still the most popular. So they're going to tell that story. Like they do in every single Dragon Ball Z game, they're going to tell that story. Whether it's like abridged or whether it's in some kind of way where it's like specific to the character is yet to be seen, but it's definitely going to be told. I just think, albeit it might be faster like they did in Storm Connections, where it's just like a history mode kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I think the main story is pretty much just going to be Super. I'm surprised they're not even calling this Dragon Ball Super, like Sparking Zero, because like it's primarily been Super that's been shown off. And like even the characters that you say you're coming up with, like you're gonna be like, oh cool, well we're gonna get like let's say Jiren, right? Jiren's gonna have 2 separate forms. He's gonna have like Jiren and Jiren with his shirt off. Like that's gonna be 2 separate forms. Topo is gonna have Topo and God of Destruction Topo. You know what I mean? So like those characters are all gonna be multiple slots when they're shown out anyway. It's not like you get 1 slot for each. Like even freaking Zamasu, like it's gonna have like we're gonna have like Zamasu, and then we're gonna have like Goku Black. We're gonna have like they might not do manga stuff, so I don't know if they're gonna have like Super Saiyan Goku Black and like
probably not.
It might just be like Rose and then like merged Zamasu and then like mutated Zamasu, and which will probably be a giant character because giant characters are in this game.
Yeah, or at least like bigger Super Saiyan Broly.
Yeah. Like super buff. All right, I'm gonna read some of these comments that we got here. Raziel says maybe they will do those characters, but they're not going to be in the roster like Small Mob or some. No, they'll be in the roster. If they take the time to give those characters like move sets, they're going to make them playable.
Unfortunately, it does seem like the trend. Even Dimps with Xenoverse made those,
But every Tenkaichi game has had that. Even the Raging Blast games have had that.
I think the only one that didn't have them was, I think Tenkaichi 1, I think maybe, at least didn't have Frieza Soldier. I think it had Cyberman and Cell Jr. And Cyberman and Cell Jr.,
And then Michael Garcia says, well, what if they went this route then and they just put OG Dragon Ball movie because I like Lucifer as a DLC character?
That means Beelzebub?
Beelzebub, you mean? Well, that's
Deborah?
For Sandland? Yeah. Maybe, like, I think Deborah's going to be in the game, so I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be ridiculous if Deborah's not in the base.
You can't really tell the Majin Buu saga without Deborah.
I mean, he has been getting, not treated the best lately, but, I think this, I want to say this game will be okay.
If they are going to throw like characters that don't matter in there, what about some characters you've never seen that I would like to see, like Yakan or like Olibu?
I always kind of would like to see. I always liked. Well, never mind. I was going to say this going to movie territory. There were some movie henchmen I would like to see playable, like Splice from Garlic Jr. or like or Kogu from.
A lot of the Pioneer like original Dragon Ball movies, like the original 3, like Triamite, Dead Zone.
Or Cacao from Triamite.
Yeah, they don't like really feature them ever. It's usually just like Garlic or it's Turles. You know what I mean? It's like Dr. Wheeler. Right, but that's the only thing he's like ever been in. Like they didn't bring him back for any of their subsequent like titles.
Yeah, outside of Heroes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a human version of Heroes.
Yeah, I don't know. We are taking questions, guys. Please like the stream if you're in the stream, if you're in the chat and you haven't liked the stream thus far, and also make sure you check out Rich's channel at Ragiroth. You can find it on YouTube. It's usually in the description box of my videos. But if you guys have any questions too while we're talking, just hit us up because we're probably going to go in for another 10 minutes. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. But you have any other thoughts you want to share?
No, I got nothing. I think I kind of said everything I was going to say.
Okay, I have a question that I'll postulate to you then. What do you think about them if they don't include these characters? Like, what do you think is going to be your idea of the game if they don't have OG Dragon Ball, they don't have GT, and movies are severely hindered, like basically just having like Broly and like, Cooler?
Are you counting superhero on that as well?
Yes, I'm including
Okay.
superhero.
All right.
Superhero, I think, will be DLC. I don't know if it's going to be in the game.
Well, I mean, I guess with OG Dragon Ball, I can live without that. But yeah, I mean, the other ones, it would be definitely a severe bummer. It wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be a deal breaker. I mean, I think this happens with me a lot of games recently that like I'm hyped for them, but then I'll find out some news that kind of just like does deflate my hype, but it doesn't stop me from getting it. Doesn't stop me from enjoying it. But
you mean like battle passes in Tekken 8, and you mean like the battle passes in Street Fighter 6?
Honestly, it's even like the battle passes don't bother me too much personally. Like, like I
bothers me when they cut content from the game and try to sell it back to me.
Yeah, that does suck. Like, I personally still think Street Fighter 6's roster is absolute garbage. I mean, it's a little better now, but I think that's absolute garbage. Tekken 8, I actually overall really liked, outside of a couple things.
Yeah, we can make a whole stream on that because there's just usually I have like them teasing us with a broken version of Tekken Force. That's not Tekken Force at all.
And they just seem to refuse to want to actually add that or even say that it's coming. I don't know why you would.
Even though it's been in literally every single Tekken mainline game since Tekken 3.
And the game's doing great. It would be a perfect way, but
instead they're going to give us costumes that we already had in Tekken 7 and sell them back to us in a battle pass. But
I mean, the thing is, like, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. Like, there's still a lot of characters I want to play as that aren't from GT and movies that are already in the game or are like we're very confident about that are going to be in the game. So yeah, it's not going to be a deal breaker, but definitely a bummer. I'll say that much.
Raziel's asking about Sean Schemmel in that stream that he said where he said he put 60 to 80 hours of voice acting into the. Well, first of all, it doesn't mean much to me because like 20 of that could be screams, like in different action. Like
he is voicing the main.
He's the main character. So like, if the character who played like Broly, like let's say that like what's his name, Johnny Yambosh, if he came out and was like, yeah, I put like 40 hours of voice acting into this game, then I'd be a little excited. Goku is like Goku, so even if it's 60, because I don't think it's 80, but even if it is 60, like he said, like 10 of that is going to be like reactions to hits and stuff like that, voiceover stuff, dialogue lines for the story and whatnot. So I don't think that has too much of a bearing.
I guess it would be time to get excited if we heard like, for instance, Cooler's voice actor. I think it's like Andrew Chandler. If he said like, yeah, I recorded lines for Sparking Zero, that would be exciting. Or like, if maybe Chuck Huber, who voices like all the versions of Android 17, if he recorded a lot, maybe that'd be exciting. Or I think like, who's the guy who voices Baby? Like, I think it's something with McFarland. If he said he recorded a lot of lines for Sparking Zero, then it'd be like, all right, that maybe means something. But yeah, I mean, him having that many voice lines in the game doesn't really surprise me that much because, yeah, with Mark said, like, all the reactions, all the versions of Goku in the game, and I'm sure he's probably the character that has the most dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit there for, like, literally an hour just going through your transformations. I'm stronger this time. This is Super Saiyan. This is Super Saiyan 2.
And a lot of those lines could also maybe not even wind up in the game, too.
Right. Well, they'll still be game files. So, just because something is recorded doesn't mean that it's going to show up as actual final content in the product. That's very, very true. They do cut stuff. And also, it could be promotional stuff. He could be saying that he recorded voice lines for that, and they put it in like a bonus feature for like some documentary they did about the making of the game. Like, that's like also what it can do. Hyper says, and quote unquote from Bamco, don't even think about modding or else. I don't think they really care because they know that most PC ports of mainline games are done by third parties and they're garbage.
I thought, Xenoverse 2, I think, has been modded a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, he's saying that like Bandai saying like don't do it or else. Like, I don't think they care because their cash cow is not PC. Yeah. Like, their cash cow is console, and that's like really all they focus on. And let's be honest, mainly just PlayStation. So I don't think that they really care too much about like the modding community. there's some great mods that we were talking about, like Tenkaichi 4 that we were playing earlier on Steam Deck. Like that's great, and that's like a fan made thing, like by the community and a good mod. But
Yeah.
I don't think they really care about like people like shopping that kind of stuff around. You meant on Tekken? Oh, well, yeah, yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Yeah, because I could see Tekken having a bigger PC following than Dragon Ball game.
yeah, I can see that if it's being actually developed in house, like because a lot of times they pass those off to third party studios to port to PC, and it takes like years to get the game actually good. Because PC is hard to develop for because you're literally, I know all games are developed on PC, including consoles, because consoles are just like PCs.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the different graphics cards and chips and soundboards and all kinds of stuff that people have that are across the spectrum in their PCs, they got to get the game to work on average for everything.
Mhm.
So that's why when they hire a third party that knows PC to port these games, it always ends up sucking because it may work perfectly for you if you got like an Integra chip like TI like 80 or something like that. But like if somebody else has got like a lower end PC or graphics card or RAM, it's not going to work the same, and then they're going to just say the game sucks. Just because like it's not met the specifications of like what they do. There are like minimum requirements that they usually put for those kind of PC things, but it's really, really hard to generalize them for like all PCs like they can do with consoles, because you give them a dev kit and they get it working and it's going to work for everybody the same. That's why I say the ports suck on PC, not because like they're bad. It's just like PC in general is a different beast. It's harder to develop for involved. Yeah.
Like not flaky, touchy.
Yeah, there's a lot more involved with it. So it's just like really hard. Raziel says, do you guys think there'll be a competitive scene in this game? Hell yeah. Like the Tenkaichi games like literally lasted in competitions and stuff for like a long time.
I'm not sure if it's going to get to like Evo, but at least I think it will be a competitive scene.
I think it'll be an Evo. If they have other unbalanced games at Evo, like,
or maybe at the very least it just won't be like a main stage game. But I could see at least.
Yeah, I could see it being a side game.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna have a main stage game, it's probably still gonna be fighters. Yeah, it's still gonna be fighters, but because that's the only one that's actually like capable of having like a competition there.
Yeah.
Yeah, these games are not meant to be balanced or competitive. They're meant to be fun. Basically, they're glorified party games. They're not even really arena fighters. They're just like me and Rich were talking about earlier. You can't have like legendary Super Saiyan Broly go up against somebody that's like a Cyberman and the Cyberman win. Like it's just not going to happen. Like unless they're like imbued with a ton of different items, or the person is really, 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 really good. You know what I mean? The health bars are not equal.
There's certain characters I think that are like weaker in canon that like can still go up. Like, you know, for instance, like I was always really good with like Bardock and Turles in the Tenkaichi games, and like they're pretty weak compared to characters like, you know, Mega Shenron and stuff like that. I think it's like the fodder joke characters like Hercule, Simon Cell Jr. that like
makes it unbalanced. Yeah. But not only does it make it unbalanced, but it's like they have lower health bars, they have less defense, like they take more hits, and especially in this one because this one's focused on the 3 types. So there's type advantages. So there's speed, power, and balanced.
They actually haven't really they've only talked about power and speed, but I feel like probably like balanced or like technical. I could see being another one.
Right. So like we have this another aspect where we're doing like Pokemon elements against each other now. So there's going to be a whole nother kind of thing that's like backed into that. Especially with competitions, because like it's gonna be like, oh, someone chose a speed character, which means they have the advantage over like someone that's a technique character. So there's like that's involved with it as well. I think it's going to be, if it is in competitions, expect like a lot of banned characters, like a lot of characters that aren't allowed to be used. I can, even Xenoverse is not balanced like at all. Like you can't, and if you're going up against anybody's OC, you're just like cooked.
Xenoverse definitely had like different stats and all that.
Right.
I wish they could kind of have a mode where it's like everybody is fair and balanced. Like, but you know,
Hyper says if smaller games like Energize has competitive, then so can Tenkaichi.
Oh,
yeah, we're not.
I didn't know Energize had. That's interesting.
I mean, it's probably like I said, it's probably a side. Small, it might be a side thing or like local. Like I don't know if it's like we're talking about like main prize money involved. Like you're in like esports teams dedicated to games like that. That's not like that'll be a side competition thing. Just like the Naruto Ultimate Ninja games are not like, you know, main showcases at these competitions, or like My Hero Academia One's Justice or Jujutsu Kaisen or any of these anime arena games, they're not usually ever focused on. It's usually only when they're like 2D competitive games like fighters or like something akin to that, like not even like games like JoJo Battle Stadium R or anything like that made into the competitions. And that you would think that's a little bit more competitive than like it would have been, but I don't know. Raziel says if that's the case, then the meta will be wild. Like the cyborg have advantages because they can fight while charging, or the giant characters are going to suck. Well, they may rebalance all that stuff too. We don't know because we haven't seen like anything outside of like their character showcases. So we don't know how they charge or how they can fight. Giant characters usually tend to be slower and more sluggish to use. So they're very hard to use.
They also seem, or at least judging by what we've seen for Uzaru Vegeta, is that like they're actually more accurate to scale. So like
they're bigger than they were,
which obviously can help, but that can also hurt because that might make it a little harder for them to hurt like a little tiny like character.
Harder to hurt tiny characters. Not only that, because you can
harder to hit, I should say.
Not only harder to hit, but like they're so big that unless they're actually using ki to teleport and do those kind of defensive tactics, you're getting blasted by ultimates and charge beams. Like you're just getting hit. Like that's all there is to it. Like we were playing Naruto Storm Connections, and we were remembering that like when you transform into the giant characters, you're getting ulted. Like that's all it is. Like you can't do anything about it really. So that's gonna suck regardless. But like I said, I don't foresee any esports teams being dedicated to playing Sparking Zero in competitions. Like they won't be main showcases. They'll be like side games that like people do play, but with the understanding that it's like not for prize money and it's like pretty much for honor and stuff like that. But I don't know. Do you want to add anything else?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Well, we're going to close it here then, guys. I want to thank you for joining us for this live stream. And thanks, Ragiroth, for joining me here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Please go check out his channel so you can check out some more stuff about Sparking Zero and any other game because he talks about a ton of different games. And subscribe to my channel if you would like. And join the Discord. Links are in the description box below. Any thoughts are always welcome, guys. And leave a comment if you missed this and let us know what you think. And as I always say, I love it. Thank you.
And
thank you.